Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Clarksville's Political Forum. I'm Van Stokes. I'm your moderator for today's session, and on behalf of Leadership Clarksville and your Clarksville Area Chamber of Commerce, we're glad you could be with us for today's forum. This forum is coming to you from the facilities of the Mass Communications Department here on the campus of Austin Peay State University, and it's intended for you, the viewers and the voters, to have an informed choice when you go to the polls. Today, we're going to have the opportunity to meet and greet and hear from the candidates who will be on the ballot for Circuit Court Judge Division 2. They are, to my left, Ms. Kate Dyer and Mr. Bill Goodman. Now, in a moment, they will each have 2 minutes in which to present opening comments to you. And following their opening remarks, we are then going to turn to our distinguished panel for a number of questions. They are, to my right, our panelists, business editor and county government writer for the Leaf Chronicle, Mr. Jimmy Settle. From 5-Star Radio and ClarksvilleNow.com, Mr. Lee Irwin. And the executive director of Progressive Directions and president-elect of Civitan International, Mr. Jay Albertia. Our timekeeper for this session is Ms. Yvonne Pickering. Let's go to our candidates now for opening comments if we can. We will hear first from Ms. Kate Dyer.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I want to say thank you first to Leadership Clarksville and to the Clarksville Area Chamber of Commerce for allowing me the opportunity to come here today, and to you, the viewing audience, for taking your time to find out who I am. Let me introduce myself. My name is Kate Dyer, and I'm running for Circuit Court Judge, District in Division 2. And as you can probably already tell, unlike my opponent, I'm not from here. But I've chosen to make Tennessee my home over the last 10 years. And because of that, I've decided to run for this office to make our home a better place. Now, don't get me wrong. The current judges that are currently seated have all done a marvelous job. I've appeared before the incumbent who's retiring, Judge Jones, many times, and he has served admirably in his position. And his is going to be a tough seat to fill. But I believe, based on my years of experience, that I can meet the challenge of filling it admirably. Now, many of you here today in our viewing audience, you don't know me, so let me tell you a little bit about myself. My husband, John, is a mechanical engineer. Our daughter, Caitlin, is a political communications consultant. I've been a lawyer for 27 years. I've been a prosecutor, I've been a defense attorney. I've been a judge in Coopertown for the last 6 years down in Robertson County. And as to my formal education, I have a Bachelor of Science degree in nursing from Olivet Nazarene University, a law degree from Golden Gate University in San Francisco, and a Master of Divinity degree from San Francisco Theological Seminary. I'm a graduate of the Tennessee Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers College, the National Judicial College, in rural ethics in the courtroom, and numerous judicial conferences. That being said, I'm looking forward to the questions of this panel so I can further show them, and you voters, why I am the best person for this seat. I am Kate Dyer, and I would appreciate your vote for Circuit Court Judge. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we will hear opening comments from Mr. Bill Goodman.
Thank you, Van. And thanks also to Leadership Clarksville and Chamber of Commerce for this opportunity to tell you a little bit about the race for Circuit Court Judge Division 2. I'm Bill Goodman. I am a candidate for Judge of Circuit Court Part 2, Division 2 of the 19th Judicial District, which encompasses both Montgomery and Robertson County. I'm a lifelong resident of this district, with the exception of college and law school when I was in the state of Alabama, having attended and graduated from Samford University and Cumberland School of Law of Samford University. My wife, Diane, and myself have 2 adult children and 4 grandchildren, of which we are very proud, and if you'll allow me time, I have pictures to show you. But more importantly, I returned to the district after graduating law school in 1977, office in Springfield. Very soon I focused my practice on litigation, both civil and criminal trial work. During that time I've been very blessed. I've had more than 100 jury trials, And as the practice developed, I had the opportunity to represent individuals, small companies, and later larger corporations, local governments, community groups. And this experience led me to realize that I really enjoyed the profession that I had chosen. Recently, I learned that Judge Jones was retiring, and at that time, after some prayerful consideration, decided to run for this office. I believe that I can make a contribution to the community. This is an exciting time for Clarksville, a time of unprecedented growth and unprecedented challenges. I want the opportunity to give back to the system and to the community. Thank you. Dan?
And thank you both very much for those opening comments. Let's go now to our panelists who have a number of questions for our candidates. Let's begin with Mr. Jimmy Settle. Your question will go to Ms. Kate Dyer for the first response.
Thank you. Ms. Dyer, you've both given some introductory remarks. If you will, please pinpoint and describe those aspects of yourself compared to your opponent which you feel uniquely qualify you for the Circuit Court Judge's bench.
Thank you. I've been practicing law in Robertson County and Montgomery County for about the last 9 or so years. And unless I'm mistaken, I don't think I've ever seen Mr. Goodman appear in criminal court. I believe that's what his partner, Mr. Walker, does. Don't know what his experience was prior to that, but certainly in the last 9 or 10 years, I've been in criminal court a lot. I'm also have been, for the last 6 years, a judge in Coopertown. I've had the opportunity to go to all of the judicial conferences. I know how a courtroom is run. I've been a lawyer for a long time. I can't tell you how many jury trials I've had because I've lost track. I was a prosecutor back east. I know both sides of the fence. I think that qualifies me uniquely for this position, and it's a position that I've wanted for many, many years. Thank you.
Mr. Goodman.
First of all, let me say my practice has included both civil and criminal. I've had, through the years, occasion to represent individuals with significant crimes, including homicides. In fact, I've had 2 first-degree murder cases and went to trial. Fortunately for my clients, both of them were acquitted in those cases. But I think what uniquely qualifies me is the combination of having lived in this district my entire life, having witnessed the tremendous growth that has taken place in Clarksville. That, coupled with the experience of over 36 years of trial practice, I believe enables me to be in a position to address the needs of the community and the needs of the judicial system in this community, which continues to be a challenge. Interesting note, in 1990, there were 4 trial judges, 3 circuit judges, and a chancellor established. Today, the population has grown over 100,000 from what it was in 1990. We still have the same resources that we utilize.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lear, when you have the next question, it will go to Mr. Bill Goodman for the first response.
Mr. Goodman, tell us, what do you think is the #1 priority of the office of Judge for Division II, and how do you intend to carry out that priority?
Thank you. I think the #1 priority that we have to address is an efficient operation of our court system. Recently, the Administrative Office of the Courts did a survey of the entire state of the various judicial districts. It was determined that the 19th Judicial District requires an additional 2.75 judges. We are in a time in which business has recognized that we have to do more with less. The public sector also must recognize that we must do more with less. I think we have reached the point where we have to realize that courts have to handle all types of cases, regardless of which division. Of significance in our district is the need for 2 additional judges under this study to handle domestic relations or divorce cases. We have pressing issues concerning custody of children and placement of children, which must be addressed in a timely fashion, and I believe that this can be done through better docket management.
Ms. Dyer?
Thank you. Well, it seems to me the #1 priority for any judge is to judge their cases fairly and expeditiously. And I know nothing frustrates me more as an attorney than to have a case continued over and over and over. The system is broken, and I want to help to fix it. I also want to help the taxpayers of Montgomery and Robertson County save money, Because every day a defendant spends in jail waiting for their trial after several continuances, it's costing you money. Let's get this docket moving. That's my number one priority. Let's get it moving fairly. Let's get it moving quickly. Let's just get it moving. I know how to move cases. I've done it before, and I'm ready and willing to do it for the citizens of Montgomery and Robertson County. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. J. Alberti, you have the next question. It goes to Ms. Kate Dyer.
Ms. Dyer, there are quite a few aspects on this judgeship, and one of those largest is in the name about juvenile. What do you think the biggest issues facing our youth in Clarksville today, and how would you go about addressing those issues?
Well, thank you. I appreciate your question, but I'm not real sure I understand it. This is not a juvenile court position. There is actually a juvenile court judge both in Montgomery and Robertson counties. So I think the only way a juvenile would come in contact with this particular office is in the very slight possibility that a divorce would come. This is primarily a criminal law seat. The number of divorce cases that Judge Jones handled over the last year in comparison to the 85% of criminal cases he handled was pretty small. But as far as looking out for the best needs of the children in a divorce case, in a custody case, if it comes through circuit court, the best interest of the children is compelling. The adults are adults. They can learn to deal with it. Somebody has to take care of the children. If that comes before me, then my focus is the child, not the parents.
Mr. Goodman.
I would differ to some degree with my opponent in that juveniles are a significant aspect of circuit court, in that circuit court handles appeals from juvenile courts in certain instances. And then, as Ms. Dyer alluded to, in the context of divorce, so far as custody placement. I think we need to clarify a point that when we talk about a criminal court, under the statute in this state, specifically TCA section 16-2-205, there are only 2 counties in this state that have specifically criminal courts, Davidson and Shelby. Part of what we need to do to make our system work more efficiently is each of the circuit judges will have to reallocate resources and docket time to deal with all types of cases. This includes divorce cases. As Ms. Dyer said, the first and paramount thing that always must be considered is the best interest of the child. Our statute sets forth essentially 12 criteria that are to be considered in child placement. The key is to have sufficient time to carefully consider each of these cases.
Thank you very much. We've gone through one round of questions. Let's go back to you, Jimmy Settle. Your question will go to Mr. Goodman.
Mr. Goodman, from your observation, what are some of the greatest concerns specific to the 19th Judicial District in terms of criminal activity?
Well, I think we all have to recognize that as relates to criminal activity is the issue that we face with drugs, gangs, and how it affects young people. This has been a dramatic change that has taken place across the country, and Robertson and Montgomery County are no exception. That's part of the tremendous issue that we have with growth. Being by some studies, the second fastest growing urban area in the country places a significant challenge on our system. We have to be in a position to effectively address these cases and address them in a timely and orderly fashion, and in a fashion where people have confidence in the system. It's not merely the answer to the question to have a quick and efficient system if that system does not provide fair and just treatment of those coming before the bench.
Ms. Dyer.
I don't disagree with my opponent with regard to the drugs and the gang activities at all. I do think every large community faces those challenges, and we certainly are not unique there. One of the most noticeable things in my practice in the last years here is I'm going to use a big word, the rate of recidivism, the repeat offenders who come back time and time and time and time again. We put them in jail, they do their time, they get out, they haven't learned a thing. I think the part of being a judge is to make sure that the people understand when they are sentenced to jail or to probation or whatever their sentence may be, that there has to be some kind of a rehabilitative aspect to it. As far as I know, we don't have that, and that's something I would like to see. That to me is one of our greatest concerns. If we can get people off the streets and keep them off the streets, we'll see a drastic drop in our crime rate. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lear, when you have the next question, it goes to Ms. Dyer.
Ms. Dyer, there are times it seems that the judicial process is a bit cumbersome. Folks have said that. So what, if anything, do you think should be changed in the process to make it, say, a little less difficult to manage?
Thank you for asking that question, because that's actually one of my top priorities. I would like to work with other circuit court judges to establish an ongoing advocacy program with a group of former judges, business people, elected officials, and citizens who would constantly be in touch with the state legislature to develop new ways of funding the court system without increasing the taxpayer burden. The taxpayer burden on the court system gets about 4% of the interest of the general public. I want to change that. I want to make our court run much more efficiently than it does. Not that anybody's done anything wrong, we just have a whole new world of technology out there that we're not using. Many other counties have a court's website, and Montgomery County has one, I don't believe Robertson County does, where the public can get online and get all the forms that they need to file their divorce, or to get their questions answered, or to find out if they have to go to jury duty. I want to bring Robertson and Montgomery County into 2014 technologically to make it function better. Thank you.
Mr. Goodman?
I would agree to a certain extent with my opponent, but I think we need to recognize, so far as the availability of forms, the maintenance of websites, that while I want to work with anyone that wants to institute these proceedings, I recognize that under that falls within someone else's purview, specifically the circuit court clerk. And let me say, Ms. Castle has done a marvelous job in the establishment of the website that exists over here. The function of judges is to provide a system whereby when individuals come before the court, that they have confidence in the integrity of the court, where there is docket management to afford the amount of time necessary to listen carefully and consider the cases that come before the court. We've not accomplished much if all we've done is simply reduce what previously was a 10-minute session before a judge to a 3-minute session. In fact, I submit we've hurt the system.
Thank you very much. Mr. J. Alberti, you have the next question, and it goes to Mr. Bill Goodman.
Mr. Goodman, how do you define the role of this judgeship in the judicial process?
The role of this judgeship is established by statute. Circuit court is the court of general jurisdiction across the state of Tennessee. Circuit court is the court which handles appeals from General Sessions Court. It is the court that handles certain appeals from juvenile court. It is the court, for the most part, that will consider the more serious criminal offenses, which lawyers call felonies. What we need to establish is a court that has the resources and time to deal effectively and efficiently. The role of the circuit court is to be able to meet and resolve the conflicts that are inevitable in any community, whether those conflicts be civil or criminal. The beauty of the circuit court as it exists in our district is that as a result of the allocation of cases being left to the circuit judges, specifically the presiding judge, it creates a fluid situation and so as to enable the circuit court to address all of these issues.
Ms. Dyer.
Thank you. I think the role of the judgeship, especially in this particular seat, is a very broad one. Unlike juvenile court, where all you deal with is juveniles, or probate court, which we don't have a specific one, where all you deal with is wills and estates. This, as my opponent says, this particular seat can deal with pretty much anything that comes along. The judgeship in this seat, the role of the judgeship in this is to dispense justice. I mean, that's what we do. We're judges, and to do that fairly and impartially. I'm not saying that isn't the case right now. It most certainly is. I've certainly never had an issue with any of the judges I've been before in these counties. And I want to maintain that same integrity. Maintaining the integrity of the judiciary is one of the few ways that we can get back the confidence of the public, and this seat can do that. And I would ask that you consider that when you're at the polls, because we want to continue the tradition that's been set forth before us. Thank you.
Thank you. If you have just joined us, you are watching Clarksville's Political Forum. We are meeting with candidates for Circuit Court Judge, Division Number 2. They are Ms. Kate Dyer and Mr. Bill Goodman. Let's go back to our panelists for more questions. Mr. Jimmy Settle, we'll hear from you next. Your question will go to Ms. Dyer.
Okay. Ms. Dyer, we hear the complaint all the time from the general public, so it might be interesting to hear from your perspective as someone who aspires for the circuit court bench. Does sentencing today match the crime? Are there fallacies in our court system of prosecution and punishment that frustrate you?
I wish I had 10 minutes to answer this question. I have noticed, thank you, I have noticed that some of our statutes with regard to, for lack of a better word, punishment, haven't been revised in quite a while. And I can understand why some citizens who don't understand the court system would have some frustrations. Sentencing, most people think that if you have a jury trial, the jury gets to sentence the defendant in a criminal case, and that's not correct. It is the judge's responsibility to sentence somebody. Now, sometimes the parties will come together and the lawyers will come up and say, Judge, we have a deal, whether it's a civil case or a criminal case. Just because the parties have agreed that they have a deal doesn't mean that the judge has to agree with that deal. So the sentencing is in the lap of the judge, and following the law and making sure that the sentence fits the crime, for lack of a better phrase, is something that I have said all along that is one of my top priorities. Thank you.
Mr. Goodman.
Sentencing can many times, as far as the public is concerned, and even judges, be quite frustrating. Fortunately, our statute provides a great deal of latitude in some respects, in that judges, depending upon the nature of the offense, can consider certain things, such as what we call periodic confinement, whereby a defendant would serve a portion of the sentence and may be released for a portion of the sentence, whether that's for purposes of the defendant performing work or receiving some other type of education. One of the programs that's been most effective and has been used a good bit is drug rehabilitation, that a defendant is given a choice of enrolling in a program called Synergy, which is in essence a year-long program to address the problem of addiction. And the defendant has a choice of either going to jail or going to the Synergy program. And overall, the program has one of the highest success rates of any drug rehabilitation program.
Thank you. Mr. Lee Irwin, you have the next question. It goes to Mr. Bill Goodman.
Mr. Goodman, tell me why and say in what areas, if any, can the public be more informed and involved in the judicial system?
Information on the judicial system, I respectfully submit, starts at a really early age. One thing we have done in Robertson County, and I believe has been done on occasion in Montgomery County, is to afford to government classes an opportunity sometimes to actually go and observe a trial. Obviously, you want to pick the correct trial for them to see, but that is an educational process. Many times, young people don't realize that a trial takes as long as it does. We need to have more community involvement, whether it be by informational sessions, or whatever that involves our young people. The Tennessee Supreme Court several years ago instituted a program called the Scales Program, in which the Supreme Court traveled the state and invited school children to hear lawyers present oral arguments. It's when you learn at an early age how the system operates that you come more nearly appreciating the system.
Ms. Dyer?
Thank you. This is actually one of the things that I'm doing here, even as part of my campaign. One of the things that I'm learning is that when I ask somebody for my vote, they have no idea what a circuit court judge does. They don't know what circuit court is. They don't know what chancery court is. They don't know the difference between the courts. because they've never had any exposure to or experience with the court system. And they probably never will. But you know, when you have that experience, that's a pretty scary thing. My goal is to educate the public as to what the court system is. It'll take 10 minutes to give them a PowerPoint presentation of who does what and who the judges are in what court. I don't disagree with him about starting with the children, but I also think the adults need the education as well. And I am happy to spend my time and my own time educating the public, because if we have a better educated public, we're going to have a smoother running court system, because people are going to understand where they are, what they do, why they do it, when they do it, and how they do it. Thank you.
Thank you. We have time for 2 more questions, so let's go to Mr. J. Alberti for the next question. It will be addressed to Ms. Kate Dyer.
Ms. Dyer, both of you talked about educational programs for adults and for juveniles. How do you balance the time to try to do those educational programs when there's so many cases that are still left on our dockets in our counties?
Well, for one thing, I don't have a life. I'm an empty nester, so I got plenty of time. My husband's going to be retiring potentially in the next few years, and I have a passion. And if I have a passion for something, I'm going to make the time to do it. My history in this regard precedes itself in other aspects of my life and in my career. I love what I do. I love the court system. I love being a lawyer, and I want people to appreciate the fact that us lawyers are really good people trying to do our jobs, and judges are even better people trying to do their jobs because they got a tougher job to do. So if the public becomes aware of it, they're going to make my job easier, and I'm willing to do whatever I have to do to make that happen. I'm happy to spend my time doing any kind of educational program for any group that wants it on my own time. I'm very happy to make that offer. Thank you.
Mr. Goodman.
You know, we live in a day and age when we talk about multitasking. Again, we get back to the programs that have school classes, attending court sessions during regular business hours. That way those children can learn about the system, and at the same time the court can conduct its business. In balancing time, we set aside time in afternoons on many non-jury days and motion days. The formal part of the court is concluded by lunch or early afternoon. If we do not have cases scheduled for an afternoon docket, those afternoons present excellent times in which to hold informative classes, presentations. And secondly, by judges being willing to go out in the community, whether it's speaking at civic clubs, churches, or other organizations, to take the time to simply inform the public of what it is we do and how it is done.
Our last question will come from Mr. Jimmy Settle, and it will go to Mr. Bill Goodman for the first response.
Mr. Goodman, I'd be interested in hearing you pinpoint or describe, if you can recall, a defining moment, maybe a personal moment or a particular case or court action that caused you to firmly decide to seek the circuit court judgeship.
Well, I'm going to have to admit that's a pretty difficult question, because I don't know that there was a lightning bolt moment, other than the fact that through the years, I'll have to say, I realized that I love the law. I have always loved what I do. I enjoy the practice of law. And I guess the defining moment is when I realized one day, and I looked in the mirror and I saw that overnight my hair had changed color. It had one time been dark brown, and lightning must have struck or something, and it turned white. And I realized that it was time to pass on to someone else. I recall the days that I started as a young lawyer, how much it meant to me to have judges that took the time to share with me ideas, suggestions, and I realized at that point that this would be an opportunity for me to do the same, to pass on to somebody else my love of the law.
Ms. Dyer.
Thank you. Like my opponent, I've been doing this for a long time as well. And being a judge has always been on my bucket list. I got the opportunity to do it about 6 years ago in the city of Coopertown. I'm still on that bench. It's a very part-time thing in municipal court, and it's a very different animal from circuit court. But that just kind of gave me a taste of it. And then going to judicial conferences and meeting with other people who do the things that judges do. This is what I'm about. I've been doing this for a long time, and I have wanted this all of my life. I love practicing law. I love the law. I love the intricacies of the law. Now I want to be the person who brings it all together in one package. I don't want to just be one side or the other. I want to be the person who hears all the facts, takes in all the evidence, tells the jury what's relevant, and brings home a verdict that's fair. That was my defining moment. Every time I had a judge make a decision on a case or had a jury make a decision on our case, that's what I want to do. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. You've answered a lot of challenging questions from our panelists here so far. Systemic challenges dealing with criminal court cases, the need for fairness, timeliness, orderliness, efficiency, myriad of cases, different types, as well as the roles of the court and even educating the public. We now go to our closing comments. They will be provided in reverse order from our opening comments. We will hear from first Mr. Bill Goodman.
Thank you, Van. And again, I want to express my appreciation to Leadership Clarksville and the Chamber for affording this opportunity. This is an exciting time for our district. As I stated earlier, it's been noted that we're the second fastest growing community in the nation. This imposes upon us a responsibility to provide services to a growing citizenry in our area. We have to provide these same services with, in many respects, less resources per capita than what we previously had. We cannot sacrifice the fact that we have to do more with less. We cannot sacrifice the integrity of the courts and the fairness of the courts. It is my position that we're going to have to be more efficient with the way that we administer our system. The utilization of afternoon dockets, better case management so far as the scheduling of cases on the docket. I believe that my experience as a trial lawyer and some 36 years of working in this area give me insight. I believe having grown up in this area and having an appreciation for where we were before and an understanding of where we will be going in the future to address these needs. I've made this statement before. This is a job that's about work. It's about hard work. My first jobs were on the farm in Robertson County. I've told many of you the story about working in a tobacco patch. Farm work's different from any other type of work. You don't work by the clock, you work until the job is finished. I promise to you that I will work until the job is complete. I respectfully request your consideration and request your vote on August the 7th and early voting on July the 18th. Thank you, Van.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll hear closing comments from Ms. Kate Dyer.
Thank you, Van. First of all, I too want to express my appreciation to all of you that are here today and all of you in the viewing audience. You've been very patient with us, and I appreciate that. These counties are growing very rapidly, and ladies and gentlemen, it is time for a change. We can't do things the way we've always done them. Things need to change. Technology needs to change. The court system needs to be changed. We don't have any disagreement on that. My experience as a prosecutor and as a defense attorney, however, give me a much different perspective than my opponents. I know both sides of the criminal law. I can hit the ground running the first day. I don't know if he can or not, and that's okay, but I certainly can. I've been to the Court of Criminal Appeals, potentially he has as well, but my experience is, as I like to say, I have common sense with uncommon experience. I believe that he will work until the job is done, and so will I. I'm not from here, I didn't grow up here, but that doesn't make any difference as to how I run a courtroom. I am so happy to be able to have the opportunity to serve the people of these counties in the 19th Judicial District. My name is Kate Dyer, and I would appreciate your vote for this seat. Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity here today.
And I want to say thank you to each of our candidates running for Circuit Court Judge, Division 2. Thank you very much for being with us today, sharing your time and sharing your thoughts with regard to this position. But most of all, if elected as the Circuit Court Judge for Division 2, your willingness to serve in this position, I want to say thank you to each one of you.
My pleasure.
Also, thanks to our panelists for their questions today. Once again, it's a pleasure working with you in this political forum. And to those of you who are watching at home, I want to remind you, don't forget voting day. In order to make this democracy work, in order to strengthen our community, it's time to exercise our rights and exercise our responsibilities and vote for the candidate of your choice. Voting day is August the 7th. If you're an early voter, the early voting period is open from July the 18th through August the 2nd. You can vote at the Montgomery County Election Commission, located at Montgomery Veterans Plaza. They're at 350 Pageant Lane. And also, once again, thank you to the Mass Communications Department here at Austin Peay State University. I want to say special thanks to Leadership Clarksville, as well as your Clarksville Area Chamber of Commerce, for making this forum possible. Thank you all very much for watching. Good night, everyone.